It started with a phone call. A call that, at first, seemed like any other. My phone buzzed, the name on the screen reading Lena. But this wasn't just a simple call. This call would change everything. I had never been the type of person to pick up my phone without a reason. I had a strict routine: wake up, check emails, have coffee, and so on. But that afternoon, I felt something different. I had just returned home from an unremarkable meeting, the weight of the day still hanging on me like a cloud. The moment I saw her name flash on my screen, I was almost compelled to answer, something tugging at me from deep inside. "Hello," I said, my voice still hoarse from the dryness of the day. "Hey," she replied, her voice cheerful, but there was something strange in her tone. It wasn't the usual warmth I was accustomed to. It was almost rehearsed. "I was just calling to check in. How's everything?" I frowned, a flicker of confusion passing over me. Lena always knew how my day went. We talked constantly, especially in the evenings. But there was a hesitation now. A hesitation I had never noticed before. "I'm good. Just finished a meeting. You okay?" I asked, leaning against the kitchen counter, trying to read between the lines. "I'm fine," she said, but the way she said it was off, as if she were trying too hard to convince me. There was a long pause before she added, "Actually, I was thinking of meeting up with some people from work. I'll be home late tonight." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "All right, sounds good. You've been working a lot lately." Another silence. This one longer. "Yeah, well, you know how it is. Lots of deadlines. I'll make it up to you, though. Let's plan something this weekend." But something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. Was it just me, or did she seem distant? The Lena I knew didn't talk like this. She didn't plan things around her work, and she never promised to make it up to me unless something was already wrong. But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. "You sure you're okay?" I asked, trying to push past my gut feeling. "You're not overworking yourself, are you?" She laughed, but it was forced. "I'm fine. You're sweet to worry. Anyway, I've got to run. I'll talk to you later." Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, the silence now seeming to echo. That was when I first noticed it. The change. The distance. It wasn't a huge thing, but I could feel it. A subtle shift in how she was talking, a shift in how she was acting. Lena wasn't the kind of person to leave a conversation like that. She was always engaged, always present, always warm. But this time, she wasn't. I stood there for a while, my mind racing. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking it. After all, work had been tough on both of us. But I knew her too well to ignore the little details. There was something she wasn't telling me. And deep down, I knew I wasn't going to like what I eventually found out. Hours passed before I saw her again. She came home late that evening, her eyes tired but her smile too quick, too forced. She had just returned from a team outing, she said. But as she recounted her night, I couldn't help but notice the way her eyes flickered every time she mentioned one particular name, Aiden. He was a new colleague, someone she hadn't talked about much before. I felt a knot form in my chest as I asked her more about him. Her responses were short, vague, but the way she spoke, well, it didn't sit right. She didn't seem interested in telling me anything substantial. She didn't seem to want to engage. But she didn't notice that I was paying attention. Later that night, as she fell asleep next to me, I lay wide awake, staring at the ceiling. I thought about Aiden, about Lena's odd behavior, about how everything seemed to be changing, and I couldn't stop myself from spiraling. I hadn't been insecure before. I had never questioned our relationship. But something in me knew I was losing her. I could feel it. It wasn't until the following week that I started noticing the little things. The things that didn't quite add up. At first, they were small, a missed text, a forgotten promise, a shift in her routine. But they added up over time, creating this strange, gnawing feeling that I couldn't shake. It's like you start to see the cracks in the walls, but you don't want to admit they're there until they're so obvious that they're impossible to ignore. Lena's work schedule had become more unpredictable. She had started staying late more often, working weekends, and even talking about networking events with increasing frequency. She'd tell me about these events in such detail, always mentioning how much fun she was having, how she felt so connected with her coworkers. There was this one person, Aiden, who kept coming up. At first, I thought he was just another colleague, no big deal. But there was something about the way she mentioned him that caught my attention. Her tone, the way she would smile when she said his name, it was too personal. I brushed it off, telling myself it was nothing. I knew she was a social person, always enjoying the company of others. But as time went on, my discomfort grew. I could feel the distance between us widening, slowly but steadily. We didn't talk as much anymore. Our evenings together had turned into silent nights, where one of us would be glued to their phone and the other would be too tired to even ask about the day. We didn't fight. No, it wasn't like that. But we weren't close either. Then, one Friday night, she came home later than usual. She hadn't sent a single text all evening, which wasn't like her at all. When she walked through the door, I immediately knew something was off. Her eyes were a little too bright, and her smile, though wide, didn't seem genuine. I had a feeling she was hiding something. "How was your night?" I asked casually, trying not to sound too concerned. "It was fine," she said, shrugging as she dropped her bag on the kitchen counter. "We went to a bar after the event. Just a couple of drinks with Aiden and the others." Aiden. There it was again. The name I had come to dread. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Sounds like a good time." She nodded absently, but she didn't meet my gaze. I could feel her pulling away, and it frustrated me. Lena was always open with me, always shared the little details. But now, it was like she was keeping things to herself, as if there were walls between us that I couldn't break down. "I'm going to take a shower," she said abruptly, disappearing into the bathroom without another word. I stood there, staring at the door, my thoughts swirling in confusion and growing anger. What was happening to us? To her? I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore the signs. She was changing, and not for the better. The woman I married, the woman I loved, seemed to be slipping away from me, and I couldn't figure out how to stop it. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Aiden. What did he have that I didn't? Why was she so interested in him? I had never been the jealous type, but this felt different. The feeling of being replaced, even just emotionally, was more painful than anything I had ever experienced. In the quiet of the night, I heard Lena's soft breathing beside me. She was asleep, but I wasn't. I stayed awake for hours, trying to make sense of everything. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to come together. Lena wasn't just busy with work. No, something else was going on. Something I wasn't seeing. Something I wasn't ready to face. I decided, in that moment, that I had to find out what it was. The next day, I took the day off work. I didn't tell Lena. I didn't want to raise suspicion, not yet. I needed to figure things out for myself. I had a plan. It wasn't a great one, and it wasn't the kind of thing I would normally do, but I was desperate. I was going to follow her. Not in an obsessive, creepy way, but enough to see where she went, what she did, who she met. I had to know if my suspicions were right. The afternoon came, and Lena was getting ready for another work event. She mentioned it in passing as she grabbed her bag. A quick kiss on the cheek, and she was gone. I waited for a few minutes before I quietly slipped out of the house. My heart was pounding, my hands a little shaky. I knew this wasn't healthy. I knew this wasn't something I should be doing, but I couldn't help it. I followed her car from a distance, staying just far enough behind so she wouldn't notice me. She drove to a cafe, one I'd never been to, tucked away in a quieter part of town. She parked, and as I sat there in my car, I saw him. Aiden. He was waiting outside, standing near the entrance. When Lena got out of her car, I could see the way he greeted her. Not just a handshake. No, it was a hug. A long one, lingering for a second too long. My chest tightened as I watched them walk inside together, their heads close, sharing a laugh that sounded too intimate. I didn't know what to feel anymore. Anger? Sadness? Betrayal? All of them, all at once. I had always trusted Lena, always believed in us. But now, in the quiet of my car, with the evidence before me, I realized something I wasn't ready to accept. She was slipping away. And Aiden was the reason why. The rest of that day was a blur. I could barely concentrate on anything. My mind kept going back to that moment in the cafe, the image of them together, laughing like they were more than just coworkers. I had to confront her. But not yet. Not until I had all the answers. And that was when I made a decision. I was going to find out everything. Everything about Lena. And everything about Aiden. I just didn't know if I was ready for what I would uncover. The following days felt like a strange blur, each hour passing in a haze as I tried to process everything. My thoughts were consumed by Lena's behavior, her growing distance, and the ever-present figure of Aiden. Every small detail started to seem significant, like a puzzle I couldn't solve but was determined to. I had never been the paranoid type, At least, not before this. But now I found myself analyzing every word, every action, every shift in her tone. My relationship, which once felt like a solid foundation, now seemed fragile, like a house of cards ready to collapse with the slightest push. I spent the next couple of days following Lena, not in an obsessive way, but enough to gather information. I had already seen her meet Aiden at that cafe, but I needed more. I had to know what else was happening, where their connection was heading. I hated the fact that I had to resort to this, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that my instincts were right. Something was off, and it wasn't just in my head. One Thursday afternoon, I followed her again. She said she was going to work late, which was becoming more and more frequent. I had learned to accept it, but this time, I decided I wouldn't let it go. I watched as she pulled into the same cafe where I'd seen her with Aiden. This time, she wasn't alone. As I parked across the street, I saw her step out of her car and wait for someone. It was Aiden. He was the one who showed up, the one who approached her with a casual smile that lingered a little too long. My stomach churned, but I couldn't turn away. I kept my eyes glued to the scene, trying to make sense of everything. They entered the cafe together again. But this time, I wasn't satisfied with just watching from a distance. I had to know what was really going on. I couldn't just let this be. So I waited. I waited for what felt like an eternity. Finally, after what seemed like hours, they emerged, and I had my chance. I knew where they were going, the direction they were heading. I waited for them to get far enough, then followed. My heart pounded in my chest as I kept my distance, trying to stay hidden, but close enough to see. They didn't seem to notice me. At least, I didn't think they did. I wasn't sure if I was paranoid, but it felt like I was being drawn into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. They walked together for a while, chatting, laughing, comfortably, like old friends. Then, at the corner of a quiet street, something happened that sent my heart plummeting into my stomach. Aiden put his arm around Lena's shoulders. She didn't push him away. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she smiled and leaned into him. I couldn't breathe. I stood there, frozen, as they continued down the street, their closeness undeniable. I had to look away, but I couldn't. I had to see it all. This wasn't just a simple friendship. It was something deeper, something I couldn't ignore anymore. It wasn't just casual. It wasn't just work-related. It was personal. I waited for them to disappear around the corner before I turned and left. I couldn't process what I had just witnessed. I didn't know what to think, what to feel. The man I had trusted, the woman I had loved, it all felt like it was crumbling before my eyes. I kept asking myself if I had missed something. Had Lena always been like this? Was I the one who had changed? But deep down, I knew it wasn't me. It was her. She had changed. She was changing in front of me, and I couldn't stop it. That night, as I sat in my car outside our house, I felt a cold emptiness wash over me. Lena had no idea what I knew, what I had seen. I hadn't confronted her yet. I hadn't confronted Aiden. I wasn't sure what I was even waiting for. Maybe I was hoping that I would wake up, and this would all be a bad dream. But it wasn't. It was real, and I was stuck in it. When Lena came home that night, she was quieter than usual. She didn't look me in the eye, and when I asked her how her day had been, she gave me the same answer she always gave, fine. But I knew better now. I knew that her fine wasn't fine. It was a lie, and deep down, I wondered how much of our life together had been built on lies. How much of our relationship had been a carefully constructed facade. I tried to act normal, tried to maintain the peace, but it was hard. Every time she touched her phone, every time she left the room to take a call, I felt like I was losing her more and more. I had once been her confidant, her partner, the one she turned to. But now I felt like a stranger in my own home. And then, when she was brushing her teeth that night, I saw it. The small glimpse of her phone screen as she left it face up on the kitchen counter. A text message from Aiden. The words were short, but the implication was clear. I'll see you tomorrow. I can't wait. I stood there, staring at the phone. My mind was racing. What was I supposed to do now? Confront her? Confront him? The thought of it made my blood boil, but I didn't know how much longer I could pretend that everything was fine. I had seen enough. But there was more to uncover, more to understand. It wasn't just about Lena and Aiden anymore. It was about me, about how I had failed to see what was happening right under my nose. And I knew that confronting her, was going to shatter everything I thought I knew about our relationship. But I had no choice now. I had to face the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. The thought of Lena and Aiden together consumed my every waking moment. It wasn't just the obvious signs of their growing closeness. It was the way she had been pulling away from me, slowly but surely. The way she had stopped confiding in me. The way her attention drifted to him when she thought I wasn't looking. There was a nagging voice in the back of my head telling me that I had missed something, telling me I was blind to what was right in front of me. But I couldn't let myself believe it. I couldn't let myself think the worst. But what if it wasn't the worst? What if this was just the beginning of something bigger? I couldn't stay silent anymore. I needed answers, and I needed them now. That evening, Lena came home late, as usual. I could tell something was off. Her posture, her demeanor. It was like she was walking on eggshells, like she knew I was onto her, but was hoping I wouldn't confront her. Her smile was weak, forced, and as she kissed me hello, I could feel her hesitation. She didn't look at me the way she used to. There was no warmth behind her eyes anymore, just a coldness I couldn't quite explain. Long day? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual, though my insides were churning with anticipation. She nodded, her smile barely touching her lips. Yeah, just a lot of stuff at work. She set her bag down, walking past me toward the kitchen. I'm going to grab something to eat. I'm starving. I watched her for a moment, trying to read her, trying to see if there was anything in her body language that would give her away. I had always been able to tell when she was hiding something, when she was avoiding the truth. And right now, she was avoiding me, avoiding the reality that I knew what had been going on. I couldn't keep pretending that nothing was wrong. I couldn't let this go on any longer. Lena, I said, my voice steady but firm. We need to talk. She froze, her back to me as she reached for the fridge. Slowly, she turned around, her eyes flickering with nervousness. About what? She asked, her voice too high-pitched, too uncertain. About you and Aiden, I said, each word feeling like it came from a place deeper than just the surface of my mind. It felt like something had snapped inside of me, and I wasn't going to hold back anymore. Her face paled, her eyes widening slightly as she tried to mask her reaction. What about Aiden? Don't play dumb, Lena. I know what's going on between you two, I said, walking closer, my voice cold but controlled. I've seen you. I've watched you. The way you look at him, the way you touch him. It's obvious. So stop pretending like I don't know. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out at first. Her lips trembled, and for a moment, I almost felt a flicker of sympathy for her. But the anger inside me was too strong. I had been betrayed. She had been lying to me, and I wasn't going to let her weasel her way out of it. Oliver, please, just calm down, she began, but I wasn't having it. Calm down? You want me to calm down after everything you've been doing behind my back? After everything I've seen? You want me to just ignore the fact that you've been spending more time with him than with me? That you've been lying to my face about it? My words were coming out in a rush now, but I couldn't stop. I deserve better than this, Lena. I deserve more than just being left in the dark while you go off with him. Her expression faltered, and she looked away, guilt flooding her features. It's not like that, Oliver. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, I snapped, unable to hide the hurt in my voice. Tell me why I feel like I'm losing you. Tell me why you're so distant. Because I can't keep pretending this is normal. You're not the woman I married anymore. She closed her eyes, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for the counter, trying to steady herself. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Then how did it happen, Lena? I demanded, stepping closer. How did you let yourself get so far from me? She took a deep breath, collecting her thoughts. When she spoke, it wasn't what I expected. I didn't want this to happen, but I couldn't help it. Aiden. He gets me, Oliver. He listens to me in a way you don't anymore. He makes me feel like I matter, like I'm more than just your wife. The words hit me like a slap to the face. I stood there, speechless, trying to process what she was saying. I had always been there for her, always supported her. How had I missed this? How had I become so blind to her needs? But no matter how much I wanted to deny it, the truth was right there in front of me. She continued, her voice trembling now. I've been feeling disconnected for a long time. And Aiden, he understood me in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't plan for anything to happen, but it did. And now I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I felt a sharp sting in my chest, as though someone had just ripped my heart out and left it there, exposed for everyone to see. I had never wanted to hurt her, But now I realized that I had been hurting her without even knowing it. I had been so wrapped up in my own life, in my own world, that I had stopped paying attention to the person I loved the most. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what to say. The anger I felt wasn't just towards her, it was towards myself, too. I had allowed this to happen. I had ignored the signs, let the cracks form in our relationship without even trying to stop it. I never meant to hurt you, she said softly, tears welling in her eyes. I swear I didn't. But I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can. I stood there, staring at her, my mind racing. I wasn't sure if I was ready for what was next. But I knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning. The beginning of something I wasn't sure I could repair. But for her, for us, I had to try. Because in that moment, I realized that our relationship wasn't beyond saving, yet. Lena's words hung in the air like a heavy fog. I could barely comprehend them, like the ground had slipped out from under me. Aiden. She admitted it. She had feelings for him. She had been lying to me for weeks, months, and I had been too blind to see it. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with everything, had allowed another man to fill the void that I had left. I wanted to shout, to scream at her, to demand answers for why she had done this to me. But the anger wasn't what I felt most. It was betrayal. It was an icy, suffocating feeling that made my chest tight. For a moment, I didn't know who she was anymore. I didn't know who I was, either. I had been so caught up in my own feelings of abandonment. But the reality of what had happened was too much to bear. I stood there in silence, trying to process what Lena had just told me, but the words kept replaying in my mind like an endless loop. Aiden gets me. Aiden listens to me. He makes me feel like I matter. The tears that were now in her eyes only made it worse. This wasn't the woman I knew. This wasn't the woman I married. I took a step back, my mind swirling with emotions I didn't know how to handle. Part of me wanted to rush in and fix things, but another part of me wanted to walk away and never look back. How could I fix something that had been broken without my knowledge? How could I trust her again after all the lies? Lena, I started, but my voice was shaky. I didn't know how to find the words. How could you let this happen? How could you do this to us? She shook her head, her face crumpling as she tried to hold back her tears. I never meant for it to go this far, Oliver. It was just so easy. I've been so distant from you for so long. I didn't even realize how much I was pulling away until it was too late. Her words felt like a knife to my chest. I had been the one to ignore the signs. I had been the one to get caught up in work and my own distractions. But she had been the one to find someone else, someone who saw her, someone who understood her. I didn't want to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking. I swear I didn't. I never meant to betray you, but I needed someone. And Aiden, he listened to me. He understood me when you stopped hearing me. I could feel my throat tighten, the lump in it growing, suffocating me. I had been so wrapped up in trying to maintain everything that I failed to notice she was slipping through my fingers. She wasn't just my wife anymore. She was a woman who had found comfort in someone else's arms, someone who wasn't me. Do you love him? I asked the question that had been burning in my mind, my voice barely above a whisper. Lena looked at me, and for the first time, I saw the truth in her eyes. It wasn't just regret. It wasn't just guilt. It was something deeper, something raw. She didn't answer immediately, her gaze shifting down to the floor, as if she couldn't bear to meet my eyes. I don't know, she finally whispered. I don't know what I feel anymore. I'm so lost, Oliver. I don't want to lose you, but I don't know how to fix what's broken. I felt my heart shatter into pieces, each word of hers sinking deeper into my soul. The woman I had loved, the woman I thought I knew, was lost in a mess of confusion and guilt. And I was the one who had been blind to it all. I stepped back, taking in a deep breath as I tried to steady myself. I don't know what to say to that, Lena. You've hurt me in ways I can't even describe. And maybe I've been blind to what was right in front of me. But I can't keep pretending that everything is okay. She reached out to me, but I flinched instinctively, not wanting her touch. Please, Oliver, don't shut me out. We can fix this. I swear we can. I shook my head, unable to look at her. I don't know if we can. I don't know if I can. You've already shut me out, Lena. You've already given a piece of yourself to someone else, and I don't know if I can trust you again. She stepped forward, her voice pleading. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, just don't leave me like this. I'm begging you. I took a step back again, shaking my head. I need space, Lena. I need to think. I can't do this right now. The words felt like they were tearing me apart, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything else. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't be the one to fix this. Because right now, I wasn't sure I wanted to fix it. I wasn't sure I could ever look at her the same way again. I turned and walked toward the door, feeling a weight pressing down on my chest with each step. I couldn't stay there, not in that house, not with the woman who had just broken my heart. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to get out. I needed to breathe. As I slammed the door behind me, I could hear her calling my name, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. I couldn't face her, not yet. What had started as a love I thought was unbreakable had now become a fragile, shattered thing, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. I didn't know how to fix what had been broken, and that scared me more than anything else. The days that followed felt like they stretched on forever. Lena and I barely spoke. The silence between us was suffocating, heavier than any argument we'd ever had. It wasn't just the tension. It was the overwhelming sense of something broken, something irreparable. I stayed away from the house as much as I could, burying myself in work, in distractions, anything to keep my mind from spiraling into the painful thoughts that lingered at the edges of my consciousness. But the truth was always there, gnawing at me, just beneath the surface. I had no idea what Lena was doing during the day. She kept to herself, often locking herself in the bedroom or staying in the kitchen for hours. The air in the house felt thick, like a constant storm was hovering overhead, waiting to break. Every time I came home, there was that lingering tension, that feeling that we were both waiting for something to happen, for a conversation that neither of us was brave enough to start. I couldn't escape the reality of what had transpired. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lena and Aiden, laughing, talking, the bond they shared becoming clearer with each passing day. I couldn't stop the intrusive thoughts from taking over. Thoughts about what it would mean if Lena really was falling for him. If she had already chosen him over me. How long had she been hiding it? Had she already made up her mind? These questions haunted me. And when I looked at her, I couldn't ignore the fact that I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me anymore. The woman I had once known, who had been my everything, was now a stranger with secrets I wasn't sure I was ready to confront. On the third day of this agonizing silence, I came home to find Lena sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. She didn't hear me come in at first. I stood there for a moment, watching her, my heart twisting in my chest. Part of me wanted to go to her, to comfort her, to tell her that everything could be okay. But the other part, the part that was angry, betrayed, hurt, told me to keep my distance. I had been the one who was wronged. I had been the one who had suffered, and I didn't know how to fix that. Lena. I called softly, unsure of what to say. She looked up, her eyes red from crying. The sight of her like this almost broke me. I wanted to reach out to her, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not until I understood why this was happening, why everything had changed so quickly. Oliver, she whispered, her voice shaky. I've been thinking. A lot. About everything. I stayed where I was, not moving an inch. I didn't trust myself to speak, let alone listen. I was too raw, too emotional to even consider hearing her side of things again. But there she was, sitting in front of me, looking lost, looking like she needed someone to fix this mess. What is it, Lena? I asked, my tone colder than I meant it to be. What is there to talk about? Her eyes flickered with pain, and I saw the regret in them. But was it enough? Could regret undo the damage she had caused? Could she take back what she had done? I'm sorry, she said quietly, looking at the floor as she spoke. I don't know what happened to us. I don't know when I stopped being the person you fell in love with. I never wanted to hurt you, Oliver. Never. I swallowed hard, my throat tightening as I tried to keep my composure. I wanted to believe her, but the reality of what had happened was still fresh. I couldn't ignore the image of her with Aiden, the way they had shared something that had once been ours. It was hard not to feel like I had been replaced, like I wasn't enough anymore. I don't know if I can believe that, Lena. I finally said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. How do I know you're telling the truth? How do I know you're not just saying this because you've been caught? Her face crumpled as the tears began to fall again. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I swear, Oliver, I never wanted this to happen. I didn't plan for it. Aiden was just someone I could talk to, someone who listened. But I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to make you feel this way. I stayed silent for a long time, processing her words. But none of it felt right. None of it felt like the truth. I had seen the way she looked at him, the way she was with him. It wasn't just about talking anymore. It was something deeper, something more intimate. The truth hit me like a freight train. She was in love with him. She wasn't just conflicted, she had already made her choice. I need time, Lena, I said quietly, my voice betraying the vulnerability I had been trying so hard to hide. I need space to think. I don't know what this is anymore. I don't know if I can ever go back to how things were. She nodded, the sobs breaking through as she clutched the edge of the couch, her body shaking with emotion. I understand, Oliver. I do. And I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me right now. But I love you. I still love you. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I turned away and walked out of the room, my heart heavy with uncertainty. I didn't want to be the one who had to make a decision. I didn't want to have to choose between forgiving her or walking away. But what if there was no choice left? What if everything had already been decided, and I was just too late to stop it? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, the images of Lena with Aiden flashing in front of my eyes. I knew I had to confront this, to confront her, but I wasn't sure I was ready for the answers. I wasn't sure I could handle the truth anymore. But as I lay there in the dark, I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't keep living in this limbo. Something had to give. Something had to break. And soon, I would have to make the hardest decision of my life. The days that followed felt like a slow unraveling of everything I had once known to be true. Every moment felt like a heavy weight, pressing down on me, and I couldn't shake the image of Lena and Aiden together. I could still feel her tears on my cheek, her voice pleading for forgiveness. But no matter how many times I replayed the scene in my mind, the weight of betrayal didn't lessen. It only grew heavier, like a stone lodged deep in my chest that refused to be dislodged. I couldn't look at her without feeling the sting of everything she had said, everything she had done. And I couldn't look at myself without wondering how I had missed it all, how I had been blind to the distance growing between us. Lena and I didn't speak much after that night. The silence between us became its own presence, suffocating and uncomfortable. I kept my distance physically, retreating into my office or out of the house whenever I could. But it was the emotional distance that kept gnawing at me. I had tried to understand her, to listen to her, but in the end, I had missed something vital, something that couldn't be undone. It wasn't just that she had grown closer to Aiden, it was that she had stopped growing closer to me. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had done the same. I had been neglecting her too, in my own way. I had been so caught up in my work, in my routines, in the idea of keeping everything normal, that I had let her slip away without even noticing. But now, I had to figure out what came next. The uncertainty was killing me. I couldn't keep pretending like this wasn't happening. I couldn't keep living in a state of limbo where every interaction with Lena felt like a betrayal, and every conversation with myself felt like a losing battle. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the kitchen, staring at the half-empty cup of coffee in front of me. The house was quiet, too quiet. Lena was gone, out with Aiden again, no doubt, leaving me with nothing but the swirling thoughts in my head. I picked up my phone, scrolling through it aimlessly, trying to distract myself from the tension in the air. But it wasn't working. It never worked. I wasn't sure what I expected, but then a message from Lena popped up on the screen. It was short, too short. It read, "Can we talk tonight? I need to explain." I stared at the message, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to tell her I needed space, to tell her I wasn't ready to hear whatever she had to say. But another part of me knew this had to happen. I needed closure. I needed to know if there was even a chance for us anymore, or if this was truly the end. I tapped the screen, typing a simple response. "Okay, let's talk." The minutes stretched into hours before she finally came home. The moment she stepped inside, I felt the change in the air. There was something different about her. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes avoiding mine, as if she knew what was coming, but she wasn't sure how to handle it. And neither was I. She sat down across from me, her hands clasped tightly together. "I don't know how to do this, Oliver," she said, her voice shaky. "I don't know how to fix what's broken." "Neither do I said quietly, my gaze fixed on her. "But you have to understand something, Lena. What's broken between us? It can't just be fixed with a few words. You've hurt me. You've hurt us, and I don't know if I can forgive that. I don't know if I even want to." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the raw vulnerability in her eyes, the woman I had once loved, the woman who had been so sure of us, so certain of our future. But that woman seemed so far away now. The reality of what she had done, what we had both allowed to happen, hung in the air like a heavy fog. I never wanted to hurt you, Oliver, she whispered, her voice trembling. I swear to you, it wasn't supposed to be like this. It just happened. Aiden and we connected in a way I haven't connected with anyone in a long time. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't want to fall for him, but I did. And now I don't know how to fix what I've broken. The words hit me harder than I expected. I had known, deep down, that this wasn't just an innocent friendship between her and Aiden. But hearing it from her lips, hearing her admit that she had fallen for him, was a blow I wasn't prepared for. My chest tightened with a mixture of anger, hurt, and disbelief. I don't know how to forgive you, Lena, I said, my voice breaking despite my best efforts to stay composed. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way anymore. She took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine, as if she was trying to read me, trying to figure out if there was still a chance for us. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to take me back or to forget what I've done. But I need you to know that I still love you. I still care about you. And I'm sorry for everything I've done. The words didn't feel like enough. They couldn't be enough. How could they be, after everything? After all the lies, after the distance, after Aiden? I didn't know how to respond to that. I didn't know if I wanted to respond. The silence between us was suffocating again. I wanted to tell her that everything would be okay, that we could move past this, that we could heal. But I couldn't bring myself to lie. The truth was, I wasn't sure we could fix this. I wasn't sure there was anything left to fix. I need time. I said finally, my voice quiet but firm. I need time to think, to figure out what this means. I don't know what's going to happen between us, Lena. I don't know if we can survive this. Her face fell, but she didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me otherwise. Instead, she simply nodded, the weight of the situation settling over her like a heavy blanket. I understand, she whispered. I stood up then, the need to leave, to get some air, overwhelming me. I couldn't stay in this room with her any longer. Not when I was still so confused, so hurt. I couldn't look at her and pretend everything was okay. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling like I had failed. I walked toward the door, pausing only to look back one last time. Lena sat there, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. And in that moment, I realized that no matter what happened next, I couldn't go back to the way things were. I couldn't unknow what had happened. This was the breaking point, and nothing would ever be the same again. The days after that conversation felt like a haze of conflicting emotions. I needed time, and Lena had given me the space I asked for, though it hurt both of us more than we cared to admit. She spent her days away from me, and I kept myself occupied, distracting myself from the ache that lingered in my chest. The silence was unbearable, but it was necessary. We both needed to reflect, to understand what had happened, and whether there was any hope left for us. It wasn't until a week later that I realized something. Time didn't heal the wounds, but it gave me perspective. I had spent so much of those days replaying every moment, every hurtful word, and every action that led us to this point. I had wanted to blame Lena, to say she was the one who destroyed everything. But in truth, I had been neglectful too. I had taken her for granted, lost in my own world, and in doing so, I had let the distance grow between us. Our problems weren't just hers to fix, they were mine too. I had to be honest with myself. I still loved her. Despite everything, despite the pain, she was still the woman I wanted by my side. And I realized that if there was any chance of saving us, I had to make the first move. I knew I couldn't do it alone. Relationships take work, and we both had to be willing to fight for what we had lost. But I was ready. I was ready to rebuild, piece by piece, and see if we could find our way back to each other. That afternoon, I called Lena. It felt like the hardest thing I'd ever done, but the moment I heard her voice, everything else fell away. There was so much I wanted to say, so much that had been left unsaid for too long. But I didn't know how to begin. So, I simply said what was on my heart. Lena, I've spent the last week thinking about everything. About us. I can't say I understand everything, but I know that I don't want to lose you. I want to try again. I want to fix this. She didn't say anything for a moment, and I held my breath, terrified that she would tell me it was too late, that we had reached the end. But then, I heard her voice crack through the silence, soft and hesitant. I don't want to lose you either, Oliver. I've been so scared, so confused. I don't know how to fix it either, but I'm willing to try. I'll do whatever it takes. Relief washed over me, and I could feel the weight on my chest lighten for the first time in what felt like forever. We weren't fixed, not yet, but we had taken the first step together. We had decided that it was worth fighting for. The next few weeks were slow, but they were filled with effort. We went to therapy together, something we should have done long before everything had fallen apart. It wasn't easy, but slowly, we began to understand each other again. We talked about our fears, our needs, and how we had gotten so lost. And through that honesty, through the hard conversations, we found a way back to each other. We started small. Simple gestures, like cooking dinner together, laughing at silly inside jokes, and actually listening to each other's needs. It wasn't always perfect, and there were moments when the past would creep back in, but we worked through them, together. One evening, as we sat on the couch, just the two of us, I looked over at Lena. She had a soft smile on her face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight that had hung over us for so long had started to lift. We weren't the same as we had been before, but we were something even better, something stronger. "I'm sorry for everything," she said, her voice full of sincerity. "I know I hurt you, and I never wanted to. But I'm so glad we're here now. I'm glad we didn't give up." "I'm sorry too," I replied, my voice steady but full of emotion. "For not seeing you. For not listening when you needed me. But we're here now, and that's what matters." She nodded, a small tear slipping down her cheek, but it wasn't the same kind of tear. It was a tear of healing, of hope. We didn't have all the answers. We didn't know what the future held, but we were both committed to finding it, to building it together. Slowly, we had repaired what had been broken, and while it wasn't the same as before, it was better. It was real. And in that moment, I knew that we had found something more important than just love. We had found understanding, forgiveness, and a second chance. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but with her by my side, I knew we could face anything. Because love, at its best, isn't about perfection. It's about knowing that, no matter how far you've fallen, you can always rise again, together.